Good morning and welcome to Live at the Waterhole this morning. This is the 4th of August, and you are with Stefan Winterboer, who's going to be your naturalist for the next 3 hours. And I am looking forward to it immensely, to be honest with you. We've opened up on the Okakoya watering hole here in Namibia. And well, it is in Namibia in the Etosha National Park. And as you can see, different to yesterday, the sky is once again clear blue and the pan in front of us unruffled by wind. Can you believe it? Such a dramatic change day to day. And that is exactly what we can expect. You don't know, well, expect the unexpected. We don't know what's going to be happening today around these pans. It is a live feed this from Namibia and from a couple of different cameras all over East and Southern Africa. It is also an interactive show, so please do absolutely send through your questions and your comments, and we'll try and get through as many of them as we can through the show. If you don't know how to ask a question, all you need to do is go and visit the WildEarth website and register there, and you'll be able to ask questions. Right, why don't we go and have a look at what the weather is doing at all the locations that we have some cameras at. As you can see, from that, the weather is fine here for a Southern Hemisphere winter's day. And I, for one, today, for the first time this whole week, I'm sitting with a t-shirt on again. This week has been cold and windy and unpleasant here where I'm sitting, which is very close to the Kruger National Park, the world famous Kruger National Park. In fact, from where I'm sitting, I just have to look out of my window and I can actually see it, which is quite nice. Nice to have a house here. Right, let's get into what we're looking at here. So, quite obvious is from a movement point of view. Let's start in the foreground. We've got some guinea fowl. They're the dark birds that you're looking at, the pair of them walking through the rocks. Then coming toward us along the edge of the pan on the right hand side, looks to be an impala. Yeah, it's an impala. And it's got horns, which means it's a male impala. And what's special about these impala is that they're a subspecies that's endemic to Etosha. They don't occur anywhere else. This is the black-faced impala. And it doesn't have a black face so much as on the bridge of the nose, all impala have got a black marking. And the black-faced impala has just got a slightly bigger marking than the normal common impala. And it is distinctly different from a genetic point of view, which is why it's been classified as such on its own. And then if we carry on there in the center background, we've got a herd of dark antelope there. Those are blue wildebeest, also known as brindled gnu. Or at least from where I'm sitting, it looks like blue wildebeest. Resolution on my screen isn't that good at this distance, but that size, the general impression of size and shape with a longish tail and head down, and that color, and also in the herd that they're in at the moment, leads me to believe that they're blue wildebeest. There's another wildebeest that we find out in Africa called the black wildebeest, but they have a white tail. And then you do get a subspecies of the blue wildebeest up in Kenya called the white-throated wildebeest, which is slightly smaller and has a big flowing white beard rather than a black dark beard. Let's go and have a look. Yeah, they look like blue wildebeest to me. And then we've got some springbuck here in the foreground, and then standing, looking beautiful there is one of my favorites. On the right hand side, we've got an oryx. Such a great antelope. Slightly different from the East African oryx that we're seeing in Kenya at Ozonyo's camera, which we spent quite a lot of time at yesterday. Um, in that they seem to be a little bit bigger and their coats are grey rather than reddish. Just look at that. Goodness me. The oryx and the springbuck are desert dwellers. They can do very, very well in dry desert conditions, so arid conditions where grass cover is sparse to non existent and where surface water is also very scarce or seasonal. They will drink, obviously, they're drinking now, but they don't need to drink. And that is not the same as the wildebeest in the background. The wildebeest in the background, they do need to drink. And relatively speaking, are considered bulk grazers. They, relatively speaking, and I'm talking about from a ruminant point of view, all ruminants are not bulk grazers. Those are a term that we usually use to describe things like hippo, elephant, zebra. But relatively speaking, amongst the ruminants, the springbuck, the oryx, and the wildebeest all eat grass. The wildebeest have got quite a broad mouth, whereas the oryx have a sharp, pointed mouth. The oryx are very selective in what they feed on, whereas the wildebeest are slightly less selective. And I'm comparing ruminants here, right? So I'm not by any means suggesting that the wildebeest are bulk graders, or that they're hindgut fermenters, or that they are anything else except for what they are. Let's see what this oryx is going to do. They tend to rush in and then stop close to the pan's edge and then come in and drink. And I think that's because they're wary of whatever could be lying in ambush around these pans. It is very common for lion to set up camp, for lack of a better word, around pans like this in the dry season because they know that the animals are coming from far and wide to them. They must drink. And so it's basically a time of plenty for lions, whereas everything else is battling to find enough to eat. You see that impala that's walking off there has got quite an impressive set of horns, actually. Yep, that oryx is having none of that impala around him. If you can see the horn tips of that impala on your view, you can tell whether an impala is immature or mature or old by looking at the tips of his horns, so the last sort of 2 or 3 inches. If the horn tips are facing each other, then it's immature. If the horn tips are parallel to each other, that's a mature breeding ram. And if the horn tips are splayed and are facing away from one another, then it's an old male who's past his prime, but still provides a vital purpose in any herd, and that is to train up the youngsters. And they do that by helping them wrestle and fight, and the vigilance that they've learned over all the years is passed down to the youngsters. So all 3 stages in an impala's life are important. Obviously, the future is held in the hands of the youth. The current crop of babies to weather any future challenges are made by the dominant or mature rams, and then of course passing down all the knowledge that's learned and wrestling partners to build up fitness and strength is the territory of the older guys. So everyone has its purpose. For those of you who couldn't watch yesterday, the there was such a massive wind blowing that the dust from the pans had been kicked up, and what had happened was it obscured the sky. You couldn't see any blue. It ruffled the water to a point where there was no reflection possible, and in the end, it actually blocked out the tree line that you can see in the background. We couldn't see those trees anymore. As you can see from today, we don't have that problem. Whatever weather system caused that's moved on. That oryx just came in, had a drink, and is now left. No swimming today. But as the day gets a little bit hotter, we're going to expect to see, particularly the springbuck, wade into the water, sometimes even as deep as their chests. And one a couple of days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, even sort of did laps, swam out to the middle and then swam back again, or waded out to the middle and then waded back out again. I don't think he was swimming. I think he was just walking on the bottom, but much deeper than what you'd expect reasonable. As you know, our mission, or WildEarth's mission, is to connect people with nature. And one of the ways that you can help with this is to go and visit our website and to click on the donate button and pledge your support in that manner. It would be much appreciated. Here we've got some early swimmers coming in from the right hand side. You can see them wading in. It tends to be the favorite swimming beach, to be honest with you. They do come in and wade from the back beach, but it's not as common as this one. You probably find that it's just an easier slope into the water and provides a little bit more sure footing for the springbuck who wade in and have their drink. Right, so we do have two different species of guinea fowl that occur in southern Africa. The helmeted guinea fowl, which is the one that you're looking at right now, and then we do get a curly-haired one called the crested guinea fowl, which just so happens to be my favorite of the two. And the ones that we're looking at now are the helmeted guinea fowl, and are well regarded in many cultures in Africa as being sort of the essence of care, tender care and love, but also bravery and commitment and fierce defense of their flock. And so it is a symbol in a couple of cultures. I quite like that, to be honest with you. And they're very tender with their youngsters, soft crowing or cooing, I should say, not get my words right. Soft cooing, crooning at their babies, and if you give them, if predators arrive, they very often will bombard the predator's wings out, kicking and flapping and making a big noise. You can see there is a slight breeze there today. You can see it evidenced by the slight ripple that you're seeing in the back end of the pan. Clear blue skies otherwise. Let's see what the temperature is 19 degrees centigrade or 66 degrees Fahrenheit, which is at this time of the morning much higher than we've had at any other day of this week. And so what I'm expecting around this pan is for it to actually gain or increase, so the activity to increase. And my experience around Etosha is that there's sort of a 20-minute or so turnaround time between one group of animals at the pan and another group. So why don't we go up to Old Donyo, Africam's Old Donyo pan, which is also the hive of activity, and see what's happening around there. And just like that, we traveled 3,800 kilometers as we figured that yesterday, further east, crossing through 4 countries to get to Africam's Old Donyo Cam in a matter of seconds, and just in time to see a small herd of 4 plains zebra, bush zebra, plain zebra as they're called, plains zebra, having a drink. Yesterday, the amount of zebra around this pan was unbelievable. Easily a couple of hundred individuals that filed through this pan over the course of 2.5, 3 hours. And at some points, almost so many that they were dazzling the eye. Such a great view, actually. The quality of these cameras is just next level. And I also like the fact that this camera is a little bit lower down, and so you get sort of an eye view, not quite a floor up view, but you can get sort of an eye level view of this pan and the animals as well. And it leads to some interesting perspectives. Definitely if there's elephant and giraffe around. Okay, how are they going to stay? That's a female, the one that just turned away from the pan, the one on the far left. You can see her belly is very wide. I would expect that she's carrying a foal inside there. Almost said calf, but it's a foal. You probably find that there is a male, a stallion here somewhere along the line. He's either drinking with these zebra or he's just off to the one side. That's another female. I think these are all females actually. Stallions tend to have, they got a bulkier face and they tend to be more muscular. It's quite tough to actually tell the sexes apart. In such good condition. So Kenya, being closer to the equator, doesn't have a winter. They just got a wet and a dry season. In fact, they have 2 wets and 2 dry seasons, with a big wet coming up now towards the end of the year, and they have a slightly smaller wet around April, March, April. A couple of weeks. Not a monsoon, but it is just a slightly wetter time of the year. There you can see an oryx in the background. To see his stripy face there. That's the East African oryx. Let's see where these 4 zebra go. Let's see if they've got a stallion around, or they might just be the precursor of the herds today. One of the great things about these cameras is the fact that we sort of sitting in a, I'm picturing in my mind a deck chair, only because it's quintessentially African, and just sort of waiting for things to come to us. And I love that about this particular show. We're not driving around looking for anything. We're waiting for things to come to us in their own time. Let's contrast what the weather's doing here while we wait for that oryx to come in. Right, sorry, I was on mute there for a second. Why don't we go much further south and go and have a look at Cat-Eye Pan? So Cat-Eye Pan is much closer to where I'm sitting at the moment. Cat-Eye Pan's in Olifants West Game Reserve, which is just one of the associated game reserves to the Kruger National Park, a piece of privately owned land which is attached to and adjacent to the Kruger Park with no fences whatsoever. So animals have this massive area to roam around in. And what we're having a look here is a herd of impala. These are all youngsters. They were born last year, October, November. And I think one of them, they're so common. They weigh over 100,000 impala in the Kruger Park. But you forget when you're looking at them how special they actually are. They've got this rust-colored, reddy coat that has a sheen to it. There's a slight gleam to the coat. This is a female. You can see she doesn't have any horns. Have a look at that black stripe on the forehead. So the only difference between this one and the black-faced impala is that black mark is slightly bigger on the black-faced impala. And that was so cool. Gosh, I love these cameras. Just no human interaction, incredibly low impact. And that's so great. You can see the ram coming up in the distance there. All these ladies will be quite heavily pregnant at the moment. He would have covered about half of them. The other half would be from stragglers. While he was busy on the one side of the herd, other males would have come in and snuck a cover over the other side of the herd, and so he only manages to cover about half of the females in their rut, which happened in May, and then they have their gestation period, which lasts, I think it's about 200 and something days odd. Excuse me, my facts here, but they will be born now in the next couple of months. October, November, the flood of impala babies hits the ground. So great, eh? Now these impala, they're sort of mixed feeders, not sort of, they are mixed feeders, which means that when the grass is good, they will tend to eat grass. But as soon as the season changes a little bit and the grass goes brown and dry and doesn't hold much nutritional value, they will move over to browsing as well. And it's one of the reasons why they're so successful in the Kruger National Park. And in turn, provide food for any number of predators. Just listing them, smaller cats like caracal will take down impala readily, all the way up to leopard. Lion eats a lot of impala. Snakes, pythons will often lie up in pans like this and will catch baby impala in particular. Big birds like martial eagle will take out impala, and even animals like baboons will kill baby impala from time to time. Jackal, wild dog, hyena. That impala at the Waterhole is being plagued by some oxpeckers. You can see that they're causing minimal disturbance, actually. Those oxpeckers, most likely these are the red-billed oxpeckers. Yellow-billed oxpeckers in this part of the world are fairly rare. Have a look here, it's a young male. So red-billed oxpeckers. And they have a symbiotic relationship with impala called commensalism, where the relationship with impala benefits both the oxpecker and the impala. The impala benefits from having early warning system. The birds are quite vigilant, plus the birds keep their wounds clean, and the birds benefit from getting food and being allowed to have an exclusive feeding zone on the impala. For those of you just joining us, welcome. Firstly, my name is Steph Winterboer. I'm your naturalist today. We're at Africam's Cat-Eye Pan, and this is in Willifant's West Game Reserve in the Greater Kruger National Park in South Africa, very close to the Indian Ocean. Well, very close, we're 100 miles away. Felt okay, you've sent in a comment this morning. So, firstly, I'd like to say good morning. Don't know where you are in the world, whether it's good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, but good day, I suppose. And you said that you love it when I whisper and the animals get closer to the camera. I don't know, there's just something about it. They can't hear me, obviously, but I do quite enjoy it. I feel like I'm right there. That's the thing. Let's have a look at this magnificent male impala. See if you can see his horn tips. Let's have a look at his horn tips. I'm expecting his horn tips to be either parallel to one another or pointing slightly toward each other. Let's see if he gives us a view. He needs to turn his head to us or away from us for us to see. Look at the last inch or two of his horns. Can't see it from this angle. Is he going to allow it? No. We'll get another chance at another day to have a look at an impala's horn tips. There you go. Oh, there you go. Kelly, you've sent in a comment this morning. Firstly, good morning to you and hello, welcome to the show. And you said the weather looks amazing here. Kelly, I agree with you. The weather is incredible here today. It's been blowing and cold and overcast the last couple of days, and today it was just amazing. Sunrise this morning, absolutely spectacular. And then with the full moon, well, a couple of days from full, but hugely bright. So no, 100%, and warm as well. Let's see what the weather's doing here. I'll tell you what the weather's doing here now. Go back to the pan and have a look at what else is there. Give me a second, and I'll just figure out exactly what the weather is like. Lovely, actually. So impressively so, and this is a unique occurrence. The weather here is exactly the same as the weather at in Okakoyo, and only 2 degrees colder than the weather at Old Donya Pan in Kenya. So we're looking at multiple countries, 4 or 5 countries difference between the three locations. Uh, the length and breadth of a continent, basically, thousands of kilometers. Where we are now to Old Donya, for instance, is 5,000 kilometers, and Old Donya to Etosha is 3,800 kilometers. And the weather is exactly the same in all locations. I think it's great. You can see the grass cover is browning. So we haven't had a lot of rain here this wet season. There was some rain about 2 or 3 weeks ago, which gave us a sort of winter flush of green. But this is a very common scene for this time of the year. Some trees have lost their leaves, other trees have kept their leaves. The knobthorns are flowering. It's a type of Bacillia, which is used to be called an acacia, a thorned tree. Very common tree out here. They're flowering this beautiful yellow flowers. They're flowering in Hoedspruit and up here in Willifant's West already. I don't think they're flowering yet in Djuma. It'll be interesting to see on your safari live drives. You'll have a look and see if the knobthorns are flowering there, and it's only about 100 kilometers or so, 100 miles or so as the crow flies difference between this location and Juma. And yet the vegetation can actually be quite dramatically different. All right, let's go and have a look at another one of our cameras while we're waiting for a turnaround of animals at this one. Look at that. We've got some zebra and blue wildebeest. This is that in coral. This is great. Nasty this morning. Wildebeest and zebra love hanging out together. They've also got a symbiotic relationship with each other. Also commensalism, where both species seem to benefit from the relationship. Zebra often walk in front of wildebeest herds, and it's because they like to open up the grass cover. They like to eat the tops of the grass, where the wildebeest like to eat the bottom of the grass. Zebra also feed at a rate that's probably about double the volume and double the rate that the wildebeest can feed at. And so definitely open up the grass cover for the wildebeest. There tend to be more wildebeest than zebra, and so there's safety in numbers. So the zebra benefit from having a slight safety advantage. All my years of watching zebra and wildebeest, particularly on the Mara River up in Kenya, led me to believe that zebra are far smarter than what wildebeest are, to be honest with you. I've seen some decisions by wildebeest individuals and herds collectively that it just leaves me with my mouth hanging open. And I've seen acts of bravery from zebra which are hard to actually comprehend and understand. I watched a zebra once lead his harem of females into the water, across the Mara River. Crocodile came up and started to hunt one of the females at the back, and the stallion turned around on the bank. He was already out of the water, came marching back into the water, and placed himself between the crocodile and his mare, and allowed her to leave the water unscathed. And the crocodile snapped, was snapping at his haunches, and he left. He luckily lived. But you ask yourself, why? Why would an animal place himself in danger like that? We don't attribute that type of bravery to many things, particularly not antelope and wild horses at least anyway. Gosh, look at that reflection in the water. Beautiful. What a breath of air. Take a note of these zebra. Have a look at the black and white stripes that they've got on their bodies. You'll see that between the solid black line, you'll see that there's a shadow stripe there, as it's called. And only the zebra south of the Zambezi River have that. All the zebra north have a solid black and white stripe with no shadowing whatsoever. Not enough of a difference for them to be considered subspecies of one another, but it definitely is a difference that I've noted. The zebra here in this area of the world have shadow stripes, and the zebra further north don't. Equally, the wildebeest that you're having a look at here don't have a white beard, whereas the wildebeest up in Kenya do have a white beard. And these can be slightly bigger. They are different subspecies to one another, but this is a brave wildebeest. The rule of thumb in the Kruger National Park is that if you see water, it has a crocodile in it. That's the rule of thumb. The amount of tiny water holes I've seen with giant crocodiles in is just crazy. I would not recommend doing this whatsoever. The lack of relative intelligence. They tend to have this, one will go in and the rest will follow, as you're seeing here now. They tend to have this herd mentality. They don't migrate here, so these wildebeest don't go into a migration like they do up in Kenya, and you get a smaller migration in Botswana as well. The migration that you have in Kenya, Tanzania is about 1,000 miles long from southern Kenya all the way to central Tanzania, north central Tanzania, and back again seasonally. Every year they make their rotation around about 1,000 miles. Whereas these guys tend to stick around in these herds, and they don't get much bigger. The herds, this is a big herd for a herd of wildebeest in this area, and don't move out. Right, just to show you how incredible this show is, we're gonna, with a flick of a switch, transport us 5,000 kilometers north to Aldonyo Pan. So there you go. This is Africam's Aldonyo Pan, close to Aldonyo Lodge in southern Kenya. If you're wanting to know where the Amboseli National Park, so if you're having a look at a map, we're close to the Amboseli National Park. And what we're having a look at here are completely different animals to what we were looking at a second ago. Here we have the East African oryx. Those are the antelope with the straight horns that you're seeing. You're having a look at a eland, common eland, which is this beautiful antelope drinking water. And then we've got a Maasai giraffe, which is obviously the giraffe male, a bull giraffe staring off into the distance. And then in the background we have some zebra. Those are plain zebra, the same as the zebra we were looking at just a second ago in South Africa, but these zebra, when you have a look at them, won't have that shadow stripe that we were talking about. Now, for those of you who've been watching the show right from the beginning, we opened up in Etosha at Okokweyo, and there we were looking at an oryx as well. And that oryx, you might have noticed how grey that oryx's coat was. We just had a fly buzzing around there. And you'll notice that these oryx's coats are not as grey. They tend to be this rusty red color, and I don't yet know whether it's just because of the sand, the color of the sand, or whether they are a slightly more reddish color. Those eland are so great. Standing in profile, it's an interesting lesson this, but standing in profile, you'll notice that the eland has a big dewlap that comes in underneath the chin, that flappy dewlap. And when you have a look at these oryx, you'll notice that they're sort of framed. There's a dark line that frames them. And that is all to make them look more impressive from a side profile. They very rarely do one another. They size one another up by standing side on, and the more impressive a male looks, those horns are sharp, they're just getting out of the way. The more impressive a male looks in profile, the higher up his social hierarchy is, and the more ladies he gets, basically. And all of those dewlaps and the outline, any fringe of hair that they may have, is all just in an effort to make them look more impressive in profile. I think this is the largest herd of oryx we've actually seen at this pan so far. And we've sort of been outcompeted by either elephant or zebra or eland, actually. It's giving us such a nice view here. Now you'll notice that most of these, well, you won't notice it, but most of these are females. They tend to have longer, straighter horns that are more slender than the males. This one that's sort of center in screen now, I wonder if he's a male. It's a bit of a trick to learn how to guess the gender or how to determine the gender on these oryx. But the males tend to have their horns are shorter, but definitely more robust because they fight more with their horns and so need a stronger horn. And I think the one that we're seeing dead center of the screen now is a female. She's got beautiful horns, whereas the one on the left hand side, you can see his horns are much thicker and stockier looking. I think he's the male. That's my bet, at least, anyway. As majestic as what I find these oryx to be, I also find that they can look pretty comical when you know, when they alert to something. You can see this one sort of left of center. Ah, it's a warthog. Cool. A mother and a baby running in there to have a drink. The Pumbaa of the bush. Lion King did such an incredible thing for African wildlife, like just sort of popularizing certain animals. And the warthog was definitely one of them. Nice round bums. Coming back to these oryx, when their ears are out and they're alerted to something, they've got this droop to them, which gives their face this very comical look. So it takes away from the majesty a little bit with a bit of humor. The warthog, I think their antics are endearing. There's not much on a warthog that looks beautiful. Obviously, this is all subjective. But you will notice that she has quite vicious tusks on her face when she lifts up her head. That's the warthog. She would have had more babies, but warthog have a tendency to feed themselves to things quite frequently, particularly leopard. Lion also dig them out of their burrows at night time. And so it's more common than not toward the end of the winter season, the dry season, to see a female with a single baby or two than it is to sea with multiple babies like you do at the beginning of summer. Beginning of December, she would have brought, she would have had um, her next, what do you call it? It's a litter of pigs, right? Not even sure. I have to go and look that up. But her baby, she would have given birth to babies in November. She keeps them underground in a den that she excavates for a couple of weeks, about 2, 3 weeks, until the babies are able to get around on their own. And then she comes out into the world, and we start seeing them the beginning of December, where all the little piglets start running around. They are super cute. Elin doesn't quite know what these warthog are. She's having a long drink. We're seeing so many animals around this pan. I'd love to know how much other water is around this area at this time. I think at this pool, this pan is an exceptionally busy pan. There you go. You can see her tusks now. The ones that we see sticking out are made up of an upper and a lower tusk. Obviously, when she opens up her mouth, they split apart. The upper tusks are the big, showy ones. They look like curled moustaches. The lower ones are straighter but sharper, and they can inflict terrible wounds on would-be adversaries and predators. They're almost like blades. For those of you that have been watching the show with me this week, I don't think we've seen a female warthog yet. They get their name from a set of warts that they've got on their face. You can see that baby's got a pair just below his eye, and then males have a pair just above their tusks as well. You can see she's just got the one pair just under her eye there, missing the other pair just above the tusks. If this is a male piglet, you might get to see both pairs. And off they go. They'll come and drink again tomorrow, probably. Another herd of zebra coming in. With this big mare on the left-hand side, you can see quite clearly that she doesn't have any shadow stripes like the ones that we looked at in South Africa a couple of minutes ago. For those of you joining, these are 5,000 kilometers apart from those ones. We're at Africam Old Donya Lodge up in Kenya. And this morning we've had a great view of a whole bunch of different antelope at a whole bunch of different locations. We've moved from Namibia to Kenya, Kenya to South Africa, a couple of locations in South Africa, back up to Kenya again. There you go, those two warthog. Oop, something going in a bit of a fright. And out of the zebra pops this eland. Gosh, didn't even notice her coming in. Something giving them a bit of energy. If you feel like asking me a question, this is a live and interactive show, so feel free to pop a question or a comment into to me. And if you don't know how, or you're not registered yet, just visit the website, register on WildEarth's website, and then you can send me a question. Let me know what you think about all these different cameras all over different locations and what you think of the show. We touched on it briefly yesterday, but eland and kudu are quite closely related. They both belong to the spiral-horned antelope family of antelope, the Tragelaphus antelope. And in one documented case, they even hybridized with each other. They mated with each other. Just one single case. It's usually not the case, but I found it quite interesting, at least anyway, that an eland and a kudu managed to get that right. But the baby was sterile, never made other babies, and so similar to a mule, it's not it's not evolutionary positive, or I don't know how else to put it, but it's not something that needs to be done or can be done that generates offspring. Dream Wild, you just sent in a comment. Thank you for sending in your comment. You say you love all the additional cameras and that this is so amazing. And I agree with you fully. Having access to Africam's cameras are just a lovely addition to the cameras that we've had in the past. And this view of the oryx and the zebra so close and at this sort of eye level on a day like today is just spectacular. Really is cool. And one thing you will notice about zebra is that their tails are almost constantly in motion unless they're busy doing something like drinking, for instance. I've noticed that their tails do stop wagging. But other than that, when they're just walking around, their tails seem to be constantly going at a tempo that's far higher than most other animals. Between Kenya and South Africa, there's probably about 600,000 plain zebra. By far one of the most common of all the antelope species that we found out here in Africa. The 600,000 between all the different countries, so South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan, the countries you mainly find zebra in. You don't find them in equatorial Africa, the forests, but definitely they love anywhere where there's grass. Yeah, just look at that picture of those zebra in the pan there. Striking with a stripy coat. Talking about how common these zebra are. Apart from this pan, which, like I said, is actually incredibly busy and active, seeing oryx and eland in the wild is actually quite a challenge. They're not that common that you see them everywhere, and yet here we managed to see herds and herds and herds of them, and in great detail. Bryce, you've sent in a comment this morning. Good morning. And you said that this up close view of the zebra is literally your favorite. And I must be honest with you, we've been looking at the zebra at this pan, not these exact ones, but we've been looking at zebra at this Africa Moldonia pan for the whole week, and it hasn't lost any of its majesty. To be honest with you, it is spectacular. Their coats are just something unreal, and I think the fact that the camera angle gives us a view of them with the dark background of trees behind means that they're not lost into the sky, and so we can see what is actually a spectacular coat pattern very clearly. And of course, these zebra, they come in and they stand in the lines like they do, and it's a fairly common shot where a zebra shows you its sort of hind quarter, either the left hand side or the right hand side. For some reason, it's just struck me that that's what we normally see them in the side profile. The zebra is going to have a bit of a dust bath. No, no. I was hoping we'd see it go down. They look so awkward when they go and roll around on their backs, actually. Interesting to see what comes. Be interesting to see what else comes into this pan. We're literally expecting anything. The other day or the other night, it was reported that there was a cheetah that came in had a drink. There there have to be lions in the area. There have to be leopard in the area. We haven't seen buffalo come yet here, and we haven't seen a herd of female elephant, a breeding herd of elephant. I don't think we've only seen male elephant come here. You can see that that oryx is busy looking into the distance with his ears cocked out, and so listening to something coming in, and I don't wonder what it's going to be. You can see the zebra also listening intently. Something's coming through. Something's coming through the bush. What do you think it's going to be? Giraffe? Elephant? More zebra? Eland? Oryx? Herd of velociraptor? Some pterodactyls? A brontosaurus? They've made some space at this pan. I know they've finished drinking, but this is unusual. I'm like rubbing my hands together to see. I'm like straining my neck into my screen to see what's coming out of the bush here. What should be nothing for the next 20 minutes, and we're all giving ourselves neck problems. They're definitely hearing something. Got one brave zebra coming in now for a drink. Yep. Usually the precursor. Here we go. Others coming in for their turn. All right, let's give whatever is coming out of the bush some time to reach the pan. And why don't we go and have a look at Tower Lodge in Madikwe in South Africa. Here we go, Afrikaans Tower Lodge. Tau meaning lion, talking about lions and predators. And this is in Madikwe, which is one of South Africa's largest, top five largest private game reserves, and is a conservation success story. When only was returned to wild, it was only realized how great it was from a wilderness point of view after it had been used by humans for a bit and was then returned. The wild was returned. Many animals were relocated back into Madikwe, and that includes the wildebeest that you're having a look at and the crocodile. There are 5 crocodiles here. I think I've only ever seen 3. And generally they do exactly what they're doing now. They're sort of lazing on this beach, collecting the radiation, the solar radiation, and warming their bodies up so that they can move and hunt and digest their food. And then we've got some blue wildebeest in the background having a drink. Would a blue wildebeest fall prey to a crocodile? Absolutely. Would it happen now? Probably not. It's still a bit chilly, but you never know with crocodile. That's the thing. See what the weather is doing here right now. So it's a lot chillier than it is at as it is at the other locations we've been having a look at this morning. We're looking at about 14 degrees centigrade now at 10:40 in the morning. So it must have been a chilly start to the day. Not quite as cold as Kimberley, but definitely not a warm start to the day. Even idea at 14 degrees centigrade, I'm still wearing 3 or 4 layers of clothes. But then I am a creature that enjoys, or am more heat tolerant. 14 is about 58 degrees Fahrenheit. And just like at all the other locations we have had a look at today, very little wind blowing. Slight breeze, but nothing much. Lots of wildebeest. Japan has also been great for birds, actually. Lots of different geese and ducks around. We've got some white-faced whistling duck, some Egyptian geese. Numerous waders have been present at the pan as well. You can see it looked to be swifts flying around over the pan. They'd be collecting water on the wing, and then catching insects as well. Any insects flying over the pans. That herd of wildebeest now having drunk is moving off. Doesn't look like there's any predators around. Usually it won't stop them if there was a pride of lion lying under a tree here somewhere. It won't actually stop them from coming down to drink. They do need to drink. They just become super wary of it. I don't see any of them having any sort of attention focused on any one particular point. Egyptian geese sleeping in the back, just on the other side of the water body, and then we've got a fairly large white bird. It could be any number of species. I have to see what it looks like when it opens its face a little bit. Could be a stork, could be a spoonbill. And here you have a springbok walking through the shot there. It's actually quite nice to see. You don't really find springbok and impala in the same place with each other. You do in Madikwe, and that is because Madikwe sits right on the border between the Kalahari Desert ecosystems and the Bushveld ecosystems. So it sits on the transition zone, and so you find desert animals and you find bushveld animals cohabiting here. It really is an incredible place, to be honest with you. Super chuffed. We've got a whole bunch of cameras out here. Here you can see the whistling duck busy feeding, and have a look at them going upside down. And we all know that ducks feed on water plants, and that is why they're called a duck. It is exactly that behavior that you're watching there. Poop, upside down. It's actually so cool. Myself and my partner were having a chat the other day, and we both keen birders. She's a much better birder than I am, by the way. But I did mention we were talking and wanting to know what group of birds we enjoy the most. And by far and wide, by a country mile for me, the ducks are my favorite group of birds in the entire bird kingdom. I love ducks. The colors are fantastic. They're always doing something. What's yours? What group of birds do you enjoy? Colorful ones, showy ones, powerful, majestic ones, ones with incredible stories. We have some more wildebeest coming in for a drink in the background, and we've got a black winged stilt, which has just entered bottom right of the screen as well. It's a wading bird catching insects as opposed to the vegetables that the ducks are busy feeding on. And you can see this crocodile hasn't moved a muscle. Such a great scene today. Big story from the top of the screen to the bottom. Active wildebeest to sedentary crocodile. Lots of different birds doing different things. I feel quite blessed actually. So it's quite incredible is the fact that in all the places that we've been to go and visit, there's been some or other some action happening, and that's rotating this morning. And I think it's because the weather's really good and it's quite warm, so a lot of activity around. Why don't we go and have a look at a different pan? Why don't we go and have a look at Jamala, which is another of Africam's cameras, also in Madikwe. So this is a couple of kilometers away from the camera that we've just been at Tau Lodge. This is a slightly different place in the same game reserve. It's a huge game reserve, by the way. It's about 70,000 hectares, 80,000 hectares, which is about 160, 180,000 acres. And we're looking at a herd of elephant, a breeding herd of elephant that is busy drinking from this waterhole. If you are hearing some sounds in the background, Jamala camp burnt down a while back, and they are busy building it. So excuse the noise, but I think it's worth it that we can see these elephant here. For those birders out there, you would have noticed the two blacksmith lapwing in the foreground, sort of center screen, right of center. But what a treat! Our first elephant of the day. We haven't seen elephant at any of the other locations, and today we've been jumping around between locations, been absolutely fantastic. There's been something happening all over the place. All right, so we're going to be fixing a few technical problems that gremlins that have crept in, and we're going to jump over to Namibia quickly. Just like that, we are in Namibia, in Etosha at Okakoyo, a couple of thousand kilometers away from where we were in Madikwe now. And you'd excuse a couple of the technical issues coming at you from these remote locations. I just find it unbelievable that we have the quality of picture being brought to you with sound, and it's live and it's interactive from all these absolutely epic locations around Africa. Right now, we're just sorting out a few sound issues at Jamala, which is why we took you away from that herd of elephant. Apologies for that, but we do get to see that what is different to just now is that the wind has picked up again. I wonder if it's going to be sustained or whether it's just a bit of a local gust. We're going to have a look and see what the wind is doing now. So the wind has definitely picked up. It's now blowing at about 20 kilometers an hour, which is substantial. Anything sort of over 13 to 15 kilometers an hour is beginning to blow, and at 20, you're looking at about three-quarters of the wind speed that it was yesterday. The temperature has increased a couple of degrees as well. We're now sitting at about 22 degrees centigrade, which is over 70 already. So quite comfortable from a temperature point of view, considering the fact that it can go over 50 here in Etosha, to double the temperature and some of what it is now. And similarly today, we've seen a lot of wildebeest there in the right-hand side, sort of center right, middle right. We've still got that herd of wildebeest hanging around the pan. We haven't seen them around much at all the last couple of days. Some oryx that have waded into the water. I think it's so great. You know, we came to for those of you who haven't watched any of the other shows over the week, we came to the conclusion that they must be doing either or both of the following. They're either swimming because it's nice. They, cold water, call it what you want, cold water immersion, reveling in the joy of having open water that you can wade into in a desert environment. But whatever, it looks like it's just nice. It's nice to get into the water. No predators, like crocodiles, whatever. But it's also because I think that there's clearer water or cleaner water away from the edges. I think there's definitely some merit in the fact that there seems to be better tasting or quality water in the middle of the pan. And so for those who are getting into the water, it's quite nice to get the fresh water and also the benefit of a swim. Susan, you want to know if the water temperatures are freezing out here? I wouldn't get into that water, Susan, to be honest with you. It's not going to be freezing as in icy, but definitely it'll be cold. The nighttime temperatures in Etosha plummet to close to zero, and the daytime temperatures don't get much above 25 at the moment, and the wind has been blowing. So I would say that the water temperature is probably around 10 to 15 degrees centigrade, if I were to guess. I don't think that it would be much warmer than that. It's not a particularly deep pan. We've seen springbuck wading sort of to the middle, and a springbuck, if you were to stand up, the head of a springbuck would probably come up to about your belly button. So it's not a particularly big antelope. The back of a springbuck would sort of be mid-thigh if you're an adult, Susan. We do get a lot of kids that watch the show, so I'm not saying anything else. Making any judgments, obviously. But yeah, on an adult person, a springbuck's back will come mid-thigh, I think is probably the better way of putting it. No offense meant there, Susan. Apologies. And I don't know, there's so many springbok on this plane, and because of those white concrete rocks that dot this place, you don't often see them. So they look like so much smoke coming out through the rocks, and wherever you look, or ants at least anyway, wherever you look, there seems to be movement of something. I have been getting some feedback from you saying that the sound of the crows that we're hearing on this particular camera is also quite intrusive sometimes, or noticeable. I think intrusive is not the right word, so it is noticeable. And that's probably because there's some structure that the crows are sitting on close to where the camera's microphone is making a big noise. Gosh, did you see those birds pick up altitude so quickly? Amazing. Right, our wizards in behind the scenes have managed to fix the sound at Jamala, and so what we're going to do is cross back over there and see what those Ellies are doing. And just like that, we're back in South Africa in Madikwe Game Reserve at Jamala Pan, or Jamala Camps Pan, and this elephant herd is still having their daily drink. You're looking at an elephant like this size, the adult females here anyway, they'll probably be drinking 150 liters of water a day. And they do that at least once. They don't really drink more than once a day. You sometimes find elephant will drink in the morning and then they'll drink in the afternoon again, come back to a pan at night time. But it's usually just once. So great to see them. That little Ellie on the far bank had to stretch his trunk down super far to get some water. Got a steep bank there. Gust of wind, pick up that dust and blow it across. This young Ellie looks like he wants a drink of milk. Is he feeding? It looks like it. I was going to notice that this cow closest to us, it looked like her mammary glands were super full of milk, and that one of the babies is still nursing. Does it look like this baby's nursing? Yeah, 100%. So they don't use their trunk to nurse, they use their mouths. You can see that this youngster is not giving his mom a chance to stand up, and so the angle is pretty weird. And of course, with a big trunk like these elephants have got, nursing is not easy. Was it nursing? I think it was. It's virtually time for that youngster to be weaned. There you go, much better view. That's super cool. See, these two will probably greet each other by touching. Elephant families are really close. Goodness me, can you believe that we're already halfway through today's show? Time is flying when there's so much activity around. It's lovely. This is the Live at the Waterhole show, and it is a live and interactive show. So if you want to go and ask some questions or you want to pitch some questions at me, you're welcome to. You just need to go and register on WildEarth's website and send your questions through, and we'll try and get through as many as we can through the show. My name is Stefan Tabur. I'm a naturalist, and I've been a field guide for many, many years. And the show runs between 9:30 and 12:30 South African Standard Time every single day. And we have a number of cameras in locations all over South Africa, Namibia, and even one all the way up in Kenya. We're still with these elephant here at Jamala Waterhole. It's the same breeding herd that we've been with for a couple of minutes. They were milling around on the one side and now seem to be either drinking or putting clay into their mouths here at this side. See this female and her offspring. They're drinking. There you go. So there's some delicious water there. Have a look at her forehead. She's got some rubbing. Either she's been pushing against a tree, or most likely what she's been doing is rubbing her forehead with her trunk. But today has been such a spectacularly diverse day at all these different waterholes. Why don't we, just because we can, fly you a couple of thousand kilometers north to Aldonia and go and see what's happening around that pan? Wow, look at that. Heard of Masai giraffe? Gosh, that was spectacular sighting. I think it's probably the same loose association of males with a couple of females that we saw yesterday. What we decided was that one of the females was coming into estrus, which is when she's ready to be receptive and or conceive a baby. She's been wafting her breeding status through pheromones into the wilderness, and male giraffe from all over the region have responded. And she does that to give the male giraffe, the biggest male giraffe in the area, the chance to come and compete with other males for her attentions. And she's obviously doing that subconsciously, but to give her offspring the best chance at life, biggest, strongest, most capable genes. And I think that this giraffe, the one that we're looking at now coming down to drink, is the one that stands the best chance of getting it right. He is a spectacular bull, but have a look at this. He's going to go and drink. Leg splayed. So strong. Look at that four quarters there. Thick legs. He is in such great condition. Goodness. Absolutely spectacular bull giraffe. And then on top of it all, we treated to him drinking as well, along with some oryx. They've just come in out of the bush. Can I have another drink? Looks like it's the most delicious water ever. Where he smacks his lips after he finishes drinking. No. Oh, what did you do? Oryx now getting all territorial. So many of them around this area. You would have noticed that the picture froze there for a little bit. That's just a slight technical glitch that we encounter when we're bringing you a live feed like we do from remote African wildernesses. The fact that we're bringing you a live feed from a remote African wilderness, interactive and with sound, is to me just the wizardry is just incredible. And so the odd little picture freeze or glitch with the sound is to be understood. Another mix of male and female oryx. The zebra coming down to drink. These oryx are actually quite aggressive things, to be honest with you. Not that zebra aren't. Zebra have their fair share of fights, but definitely we've seen the oryx give the elephant a good go for its money in terms of aggression around these pans I'm talking about. They don't tolerate other species, particularly themselves, that come down to drink. I'm always just drawn to their horns for some reason. Gosh, do some injury to a zebra. Many years ago, I can't remember if it was dinner or sundowner with a farmer who used to uh, capture oryx on his farm and transport them to areas where oryx didn't occur. And he had a son who was put into hospital by an oryx. And he said what happened is the oryx that caught these oryx, and what they do is they place when they're transporting them, they place pieces of irrigation pipe over their horns so that they don't hurt each other. And the son had been holding the oryx by the horn. He was sedated, the oryx, and all the oryx did was just flick his head just slightly. No one even noticed it. And the son all of a sudden collapsed and held out his side and said, no, he's been pierced by the horn. And luckily it wasn't a fatal injury, so it's not a horrible story. But the horn had gone between his two ribs and punctured his lung in what he believes to be a split second. He said he didn't feel it. It was so sharp. He just felt the horn make contact. Didn't know that it had entered his chest cavity or gotten into his lung until he felt all lightheaded. He looked down and seen the frothy blood that was coming out of the wound. And it's just testimony to how strong and powerful these animals are, formidable with those horns. And then, of course, the inevitable conclusion is like, how strong must a lion be to just take one of these guys down? Don't even care. Run into it, boom, on the floor, dinner. A slight frame freeze. No gremlins creeping in. Not to worry. It's all just normal. Our tech wizards in our Johannesburg office sorting out the problems as they arrive. Gosh, the way they flick around those horns is just... Why are they not bleeding more? I don't understand. Must have very thick fur and skin to deal with that. In fact, in the Central Kalahari Game Reserve, I saw two male oryx. They were fighting with each other, and the one oryx lost the fight. He turned away from the argument, and the opponent charged forward and stabbed into him, into his neck and his shoulder with his horns. And of course, they bucked around, and the horns broke off. The horn tips broke off and were then embedded. Oh, what have we got here? We've got a bird of prey that just landed. That was a difficult thing to ID. But I think that with that bold eye stripe that came down there, I'm going to say that very quickly that was probably a Lana falcon. But I stand corrected. For any of you birders out there, let me know what your feelings are. Send your suggestions for what bird that was that landed there very quickly. I think it was a Lana falcon. Let's see what you all think. In the meantime, while we're waiting for you to ID that, why don't we go and have a look at a big bull giraffe that's just come down to drink at another one of our camera feeds. There we go. We're at Africam's Cat-Eye Pan, Olifants West Game Reserve here in South Africa. And just look at that. Huge bull giraffe drinking. That was super special. Giraffe are very vulnerable when they're drinking. For obvious reasons, you saw he had to get himself into quite an awkward position there. head right down, loses his view of the bush around him. And now back up to his full sort of 5 meter height, smacking his lips. Have a look at that tongue. The tongue is actually quite prehensile. They can grab bushes with it. And very long. So he feeds right into thorn bushes. He'll stick his tongue far out of his mouth, grab bushes with his tongue, and then drag it to their lips, and then he strips the leaves of the trees off with his lips. And you'd think they'd be like car tires, they'd be so rubbery, and while they are rubbery, they're actually quite velvety soft. The tongue itself is also soft. It's not very dissimilar to your tongue or my tongue. There you'll watch him feed. Here you can notice his tongue sticking out of his mouth in the bushes and bringing it into his mouth. The tree has the most wicked thorns on it. You won't stick your hand inside that tree to get a single leaf off of that tree, and yet this giraffe can feed on it no problem. And off he goes to carry on his wanderings. Big bull giraffe of that size, they wander from place to place to find receptive females, or basically just visiting the herds of females around an area to see who's close to mate, to be able to be mated with. Hey, look at her, look there. You can see him lifting his lips. You can see his tongue busy there, picking off leaf after leaf. Male giraffe don't really ever feed on plants close to the ground. You very rarely see giraffe males go down lower than that. Female giraffe, you'll sometimes see them picking at leaves on the ground, and then every now and again a giraffe will pick up a bone off the floor and chew it. It's called osteophagy. I'll stand corrected. That was not a male giraffe. That was an absolutely giant female giraffe. Goodness me. You've seen some incredibly healthy giraffe today. Like, wow. Today is definitely a day where we are absolutely treated to a variety of animals. So why don't we go over to Rosie's pan and go and have a look at what's happening there. Wow, awesome. This is actually Rosie's pan. It's in exactly the same area as the pan we just had a look at, a couple of kilometers apart. We're in South Africa, Olifantswest. One is over, we're looking at 3 elephants here. Let's have a look and see. They look like 3 bull elephants, but as I've just shown, doesn't matter how long you're again in before, you can still make mistakes. We've got beautiful female giraffe. So definitely one on the right hand side is a male, the one in the middle is a male, and the one on the left is a male. We're looking at some young bull elephant, definitely not of the same size and stature as what we've been seeing at Old Pan up in Kenya over the last couple of days. You probably find that these are associated to a breeding herd, and these are just the teenagers that sort of have been hanging around in the back. You might find that the rest of the herd is somewhere close by. They don't look like they're old enough to be on their own just yet. No. Sip of water, and now we're going to make our way away from the pan. Another technical marvel is the fact that we can pan the camera and follow these animals for a bit. There in the distance, you can see a yellow tree, a tree with a yellow top, sort of right hand side off center. That is a knobthorn that's busy flowering. That is a tree that I was telling you a little bit. They've popped into flower. They, for me, signify the end of winter. So, although we're not officially in autumn just yet, actually, we are 1st of August. Those trees are, oh, sorry, not autumn, spring. We're not officially in spring yet. That's for the 1st of September. For me, the end of winter is when we start seeing the knobthorns flowering, and there you can see a knobthorn flowering. From now on, it's just gonna get harder, and eventually the rains will break, and we can expect that to happen somewhere around, for the big rains to come. Our major rain in this area happens January, February, March. We get our first substantial rain falling in the beginning of October, but the rains will actually only break sort of into November. That's when the dry season will be over. Have a look there with his trunk of Ellie. You saw him busy tapping at the surface with his trunk, and that was him just clearing away the weeds that are growing there, or the algae that's growing on the surface. Elephants don't like to drink dirty water. They love clean water. And what he was doing there with the tip of his trunk was just clearing away gently any detritus that's floating around on the top of the water, and then sucking just the top layer of water, which is going to have less sediment than water in the lower layers. So the purest water will be at the top. Let's see if he does it again. Watch his tip of his trunk carefully. There you go. And you just stick your tip in, and then just pick up just the surface water underneath where his trunk was. Well, that's the cleanest water in the pan at the moment. Quite a substantial tear in his ear at some point, in his left-hand ear. It's like he's got a big chunk of it missing. That'll be a characteristic feature of this particular elephant, and we'll know if we see him again. That tear in his ear won't do much to stop the function of the ear, but definitely is a sizable portion of his ear missing. Look at that, you can see it there. Wow. Here you just got the camera housing, and the elephant going behind the structure that's holding the camera. Right, let's go and have a look at what's happening at Okokweyo, Namibia. Awesome. I love the way that we're busy jumping from camera to camera. It is so cool. And we're being treated to some new vista around each pan. What we've got here that's different to our previous view here is we've got a herd of kudu that's coming now on the left-hand side. Those are those antelope moving on the left, the larger antelope. And we can see that there's a male there with these big corkscrew horns. That'll allow us the opportunity to draw the similarities between the eland, which we're having a look at Eldonio, and the kudu. Scared that female. Oh, there's some more kudu, it looks like, coming in. On the left. Goodness. One of the larger of the antelope, they are browsers. They eat leaves and twigs. Very varied diet. They do really well in this environment because they're able to feed on the vegetation that lives here, and that's because kudu are very adaptable when it comes down to what they feed on. You can see the male with his big curled horns, quite majestic actually. Some females and young males coming in, young bulls as they're called. So the smaller antelope, like the springbuck, it's a ram and a ewe, male and female. But the larger antelope, like the oryx and the kudu, it's a bull and a cow. I find it so amazing that we are able to sit with these animals at this pan without disturbing them whatsoever. We're not having any impact on them at all. And that for me is just the best way of observing nature when we're not having an impact on them and they can do what they would be doing anyway, just with us watching. Saw that gust of wind come from the left, bottom left across the screen, and so the direction of the wind is the same as what it was yesterday. There's an enormous salt pan, one of the world's largest salt pans, the largest salt pan in Africa, just off on the right hand side of the screen, a couple of kilometers away from Okokweyo camp, about 100 miles long by 50 miles, 50 kilometers or so, 30 miles wide at its widest point, and quite easily seen from space. Huge white salt pan. When the wind is blowing from that direction, it salt and the white dust puts it into the atmosphere. And as we saw yesterday, completely sort of misted out the environment. Ew, those kudu are beautiful. And these kudu have finished drinking now and are moving away. The ever-present springbuck peppering the scene and coming in and out to have their drink. Interestingly, the other day we were discussing how vigilant these springbuck need to be to avoid being preyed upon by the cheetah. Cheetah are quite common in Etosha National Park and feed a lot on springbuck. And so you find that there's a variation in how vigilant springbuck are depending on a couple of different factors. So the male springbuck, adult male springbuck are the most vigilant, followed by adult females, and less vigilant are any youngsters. Then springbuck closest to thickets in the bush are more vigilant than those that are not. And that's because you find that cheetah rest up in these thickets, using them as ambush spots and staging posts for their hunts. And then in herds, so when you have a springbuck in a herd, the larger the herd, the less vigilant the springbuck is on an individual basis. You can see that some of these springbok are approaching from underneath that tree on the left-hand side. I don't notice any particular vigilance, actually. Alice, you've asked an interesting question then. The hotter the day gets, do you get more or less animals at the watering holes? I would say you get more, Alice, to be honest. You definitely seem to, when I visited Etosha, at least anyway, we definitely seem to see a lot more animals the hotter it got into the day. But it reaches a point where the animals do go and find shade. So up in October, for instance, I would expect to see an increase in animal activity up to a point, and then when it's really super hot, for there to be a slight decrease, and then for it to pick up again in the late afternoon. But I noticed that the activity around sunset and going into the evening in Etosha was also incredible, to the point where I actually slept next to the pan at one of the camps. Um, and every single time I was roused and I opened up my eyes, I saw something new around the pan. It was the most unbelievable sight, an incredible memory that I have of Etosha. And that activity seemed to carry throughout the day. So, I saw different animals around the pan every 20, 30 minutes or so. And although there was a slight lull in the middle of the day, although it could have been the fact that I was sitting in the swimming pool, which wasn't near the watering hole, or driving around trying to find some shade, um, definitely the evenings there was just as much activity as through the day. So great question there, Alice. We'll have to see. I'll tell you what. Why don't we keep on watching the show? I mean, I'm going to be with you guys along with my colleagues narrating this live at the Waterhole show with Okokweyo as a feed for us throughout the winter, going into spring and then into early summer and into the hottest time of the year. So September, October are hell months here, as I like to coin the phrase, because it's the hottest time of the year. Sustained heat. The January, February, you find spikes of temperature that will be hotter, but sustained heat definitely September, October is just it becomes almost unbearable, baking hot. And so we'll keep an eye out and see what happens. We've got some oryx. They'll come down. And we've got some animals approaching on both the major game paths on the other side of the pan, left and right or center. Interesting to see what they are when they finally arrive. And also what they do. We've noticed that they sort of see the water and then pick up speed and then just stop on the edge to scan around, irrespective of the fact that there are animals drinking at the water already. Let's see if we observe the same behavior this time around. One thing that struck me about animals in the desert is this general calm and peace about them. And it's like there doesn't need to be a waste of effort. An effort somehow is out of place in an environment like this. It's obvious, I mean, there's not a superabundance of food. It is a desert after all. And I would imagine that with the heat and the need to stay hydrated or conserve fluid and make the most out of the limited food that's available, and stay cold or cool, that sort of extra effort isn't something that happens. And it lends a peace to a scene like this. So obviously there were zebra that came in. Great to see, actually. Lots of oryx. Lots of springbuck. A few kudu, a few impala. Elephant from now and from time to time. Zebra and springbuck forming the majority of the animals that we see out and about this pan. That's interesting. Have a look at the way that this springbuck is walking. It's called striding when they move their legs on the left-hand side of their body at once, sort of in pairs, and then on the right-hand side of their body. Have a look at that. Giraffe and hyena walk exactly the same. Whereas most other animals, for instance, the zebra, they walk very differently. Their stride is very different. I've never noticed that with springbuck before. Hippo also do it. So hippo, hyena, giraffe, and now springbuck are added to the list of animals that walk. Left hand side feet first, and then the right hand side feet. Shows you there's always something new to learn out here. The way these animals are flowing around this pan. Quite enjoy it. There's just this ceaseless motion when you, doesn't matter where you look, there's always just something going on. See how deep this oryx comes in for a swim on the right hand side. Let's see if he'll go for a swim or if he's just going to drink. Far fewer springbuck s- swimming today. For those of you who have just joined us or have been sitting with us for a while, this is Okakoyo Pan at Okakoyo Camp in Namibia's Etosha National Park. It's about three-quarters of the way up from South Africa's border, or a quarter of the way down from Angola's border. It's sort of in the middle of the country. But we have these cameras all over the place, and one of the beauties of the Live at the Waterhole show is that we can jump from camera to camera. So why don't we go south and east to Madekwe and have a look at what's around Jamala's Pan. Mentioned, this is the beautiful herd of impala. Somewhere here there will be a male with quite big horns, but from what I can see here, there's just females, adult females. There'll be a few young males here with tiny, straight little horns, sort of shorter than their ears. Here's a male. Here you can go. But you'll have a look and see that his horn tips point towards one another. So the sort of last inch or so of the horn tip pointing toward each other, and that's an immature male. He's not a breeding male just yet. And then left in the picture, a warthog has just appeared. They love to come drink in the middle of the day like this. A big male warthog that. Coming right again, far right, middle right is a male impala whose horn tips are parallel. I would imagine that he's the McDaddy of this particular herd of impala. All these females will be his. In the rut in May, he would have aggressively defended all of these females against interlopers, and you can just see how he commands respect. That growling call that he's doing there, you may hear it. Listen carefully. Yep, he runs off probably to chase a male. Super aggressive, these dominant dominant rams. You'll see he'll quickly come back again now. Won't leave his females unattended for too long. There he comes. And herd all these females away from the males. The other males around. He would have covered most of them already. Their rut is in May. You may have heard that funny noise that they make. Super aware of that other male on the other side of the herd. He won't tolerate that male there for too long. We'll see, he'll make his way now through there and go and chase that male away, I think. Rob, good to have you watching the show all the way from the UK. And you've asked, how can you tell the difference between a male and a female impala? Rob, if you have a look in the top of their head, male impala have horns and female impala do not. So in this particular case, it's quite easy to tell the difference between male and female, and you just have a look at the presence of horns. Um, Animals like the oryx we were looking at, or zebra who don't have any horns, or springbuck who both the male and the female have horns, it becomes slightly more difficult. There are other tricks of the trade there, but for impala, definitely you just have a look at the top of the head for the presence of horns. And unlike reindeer who have antlers that they shed every single year, a horn has a bony core. And oh, look at him chasing. Look, that's a male. I told you, he wouldn't tolerate another male around for too long. So he's now made his way through this whole female herd and chased that other male away. Uh, just being a proper boy. And all my girls. Can't possibly share a girl with anyone else. It drives them to such distraction, these male impala, that in the rut, for instance, they will be fighting and so preoccupied with hierarchy that they forget to eat some days and lose condition to a point where they can actually do themselves an injury and become prey for things. Some movement there in the distance. It looks like some zebra. Goodness, there's a lot of livestock around here. For those of you with a keen ear, you'll hear that impala herds are never really quiet. They're always making like a soft bleating noise, and that male has a roar. You you may hear it there in the distance. Absolutely funny noise. It doesn't sound like it should come out of a impala's mouth. And then when they're alarmed, they've sensed a predator. They make a snort, a very loud snort, and all of them will snort at the source of the alarm, or the source of the concern or the threat. And it's often how we find leopard, lion, cheetah, and wild dogs. You just listen to the bush, and it has a way of telling you what's around if you know what to listen for. Let's see what that warthog does. The warthog is left of center. Is that dark blob. There you go. You can see him there. Let's see if he comes down to the water. He's not here for fun. He is here to come and drink. But he's going to be nervous wanting to go down into that depression. Warthog get ambushed around pans like this often, particularly by leopard and by lion. And I think he's a bit nervous with all the activity around. There's too many moving parts. Zebra on the ridge behind him, impala in front of him. But let's see if he can get over himself. Maybe we're lucky and we treated to a mud bath. No, he's moving off. Dream Wild, you asking if I've ever witnessed a kill at the watering hole? Yes, I actually have. I was lucky enough to spend a dry season, one of the dry seasons, on the Nwaneti River in the Kruger. And we had a pride of lion called the Mountain Pride, who pretty much for the entire month of October shacked up next to this seep. It was a naturally occurring seep, and they had a fresh kill every single day we got there. It wasn't a zebra, it was a wildebeest, it was a wildebeest, it was a buffalo, it was a buffalo, it was an impala. And eventually there was just carcasses lying all over the place. Some of them partially eaten, others crocodiles had come out and had scavenged from the lion. Um, it really was quite macabre in the end because it was really a place of death. And then as the season progressed, the mud became a problem and a threat as well. And often we saw impala stuck in the mud on the edges of the pan. And the lions would just leave them. They were so full and it wasn't worth the effort that they just leave these struggling victims in the mud. And sometimes they got out and sometimes the crocodiles would come out and come and pick them off. Really just an unbelievable scene around this water point. You've got these zebra that are coming in now out of the bush. They're coming off the ridge. Zebra replacing the warthogs. We are in Madekwe Game Reserve in South Africa on the Botswana border. One of the largest private game reserves in the country, and we're at Jamala's Pan. You may hear a few noises in addition to the wild noises, the animal noises, or the wilderness noises. And that's because the camp is being rebuilt as we speak. And so, excuse the odd noise that you hear that's obviously man made. But they do have to rebuild the camp, and the odd noises are expected and also okay. Fairly large herd of zebra coming in. Let's see if they're brave enough to come down to the water. So special seeing all these impala here. I mean, I've left off the speaker so that you can hear all the noises that they make. And in part, really quiet. And it's just such a nice thing to have a camera like this situated close to an impala herd where you can hear what they sound like and watch them. I find them some of the most beautiful antelope. Their skin is, or their fur has got this shine or this reflectivity, which is, you don't really find it on too many antelope. I find them quite soft and special. If I was a lion, I would shack up underneath the shade of that big tree on the right hand side for the day, although I suppose it does become easier to hunt if you go and hang around in the bushes on the other side. Zane, you've asked, are impalas and zebras not friends? And you're only 11, Zane. So, firstly, I just want to say hello and I hope you're doing good. And then, secondly, I want to say, yes, they are friends. They don't hang around with each other. Have a look here. You can see, Zane, have a look at the way that these impala are barking at something. Something has caught their attention there. You saw that they're quite skittish. Something's going to come in here off to the left. I don't think it's a predator, Zane. I think it's a zebra coming through. They definitely are creating some distance. And then these are having a bit of a head tussle with each other. There's obviously a tasty morsel on the ground here. Look at that. The zebra have come down. And some more warthog. Yep. And these impala coming through everywhere. So Zane, all these animals, they're not friends with each other, but they tolerate one another because there's no threat. Also, the impala and the zebra don't really fight for food, the same food, and so they're not battling for the same resource. And zebra are far bigger than impala as well, and so there's no reason for them to want to fight with each other. And so they'll hang around together, particularly around water points like this where they share the water, but they're not going to come and hold hands with each other. Here's this big male again. He's chasing off that other. The activity is just a bit much. He's creating a big disturbance, that male impala, that ram. Well, look at his horn tips. When he turns away from us, parallel to one another, he is the man of the hour. He will father at least half of the babies that will be born later on in the year. And isn't he just magnificent? A bit ridiculous chasing him around all the time, but you know, bully. Zebra just having a quick drink and then moving off. Warthog did much the same. Not sticking around at all. Speaking to this impala, like, come on, big guy. Put your head down, have a bit of food. Stop your nonsense. And he's going to chase someone else now again. Oh, did you hear that noise? That was the roar of an impala. They look so ridiculous when they do it. They stick out their tongue, and it's this big blue tongue that comes out of their mouth, and roar at each other, and then go back to looking quite innocent the way that they do. That bird that flew up, that's a blacksmith lapwing. And just like that, the zebra are finished drinking and will now make their way back up and over the ridge. Their endless wanderings around the bush trying to find a good grass to eat. All in such great condition for this. I always feel so sorry for these females because then they're carrying their babies now, so their bodies are using the reserves that they built up over the summer to now build a baby impala in their tummies. And those baby impala will be born precocial. So they come out, and within a couple of minutes, they are standing, and within another couple of minutes, they're running around. Um, and so a lot of energy from the mom goes into building a baby that's capable like that. And it's not like it gets easier through the dry season. Vegetation is sparse. It's difficult for these impala to get what they want or need. And they always look a bit skinny and ragged by the time their full gestation period has been achieved, sort of toward October. And then, much to their relief, they all almost give birth at the same time. So, within a sort of 72-hour window, I would say, every impala female in this herd will drop their babies. What that does is it's a survival strategy. It saturates the whole environment with baby impala, and while a few do get taken by predators of every kind, um, they can't eat all of the babies, and it just gives those babies a few extra days to get the strength and the coordination and the wherewithal to avoid being eaten. And it's obviously a great strategy because impala are the most abundant antelope in this area in South Africa. Just in the Kruger National Park, for instance, there's way over 100,000 of them. Oh, look at how high that impala jumped. Goodness, that was special to see. See if this other one jumps? There's a gland called a tarsal gland on their back legs. You can see that black tuft on their back legs. There's a gland in there. And there's some theories that suggest that as the impala jumps like that one did, the one that we saw a bit earlier, it releases a scent which triggers other impala when it gets to that point to jump as well. And it's a way that in the dark they help each other to get over obstacles. Have you been chased by a lion, for instance, or a leopard, and you can jump over a branch like that tree trunk that you see there in the distance, or over a bush, which an impala can easily do. They can jump incredibly high and far. Um, as soon as a fellow impala reaches that smell, it jumps. And so, what I was expecting to see that impala that followed the other one that jumped was it do a bit of a jump as it got to that point, obviously validating that theory. But we weren't so lucky on this particular case or on this particular occasion. Such great weather out here. Let's go and see what the weather is at the moment here at Jamala. Give me 1 second. I'll let you know what the temperature is. Just now, it was 14 degrees centigrade. That was at 10:40. It's now 2 hours past that. Let's see what it's done. Oh gosh, and then the zebra, I mean, this giraffe just appears out of nowhere as well. Great. I'll tell you, these pans are so cool. The temperature hasn't actually increased much at all. When we were looking at Tau just now, it was 14 degrees centigrade. That was about 2 hours ago. It's now 17 degrees centigrade. So the temperature hasn't actually, it's middle of the day and it hasn't actually gotten that warm. It's a pretty chilly day out there. Watch this giraffe. A battle to see where he's going to drink. Probably go and drink at the same place those zebra were drinking at just now, just left of the screen. There's a small beach there. Let's see if he comes down there. That's exactly where the zebra were drinking now. Always a dangerous place for a giraffe to go. You can see that he could quite easily slip if he's not careful. I'd be quite surprised if he goes and drinks. Let's see. Oh, there's two giraffe. Cool. Oh, look there. So nice. You almost don't want to do anything that disturbs them when they bend down like that. They're so wary. There you go. It's another female giraffe. You can see her horns are very small and dainty, and were tufted, not bald on the top. See if she goes down again. Watch it. There she goes. She's going to go again. Such a special moment. Share with the giraffe. There you go. Let's see if she goes down. She's going down again one more time. Very thirsty. With her head down, relying on her hearing to pick up any threats. There you go. Immediately her ears go back. Checks around. I love the way they smack their lips after they drink. It's like the tastiest water ever. I just want to go and get a cupful and taste it yourself. Oh, she's going down again. They shook her head. Done for now. And quickly moves away. Don't waste any time. Look at the way she's walking, that pacing stride, same as the springbuck. All the legs on the left hand side and then all the legs on the right hand side. You can correspond it to impala who walk one leg at a time, each foot independently walking of another. Very different to how the springbuck and the giraffe were walking. And from a tracking point of view, when you have a look at an impala's track, each hoof makes an imprint in the sand. They don't imprint on one another. In other words, the back leg doesn't step into the exact spot that the front leg was. You have that occurring in kudu and bushbuck, leopard. But with an impala, you can see each individual track. The impala have spent a considerable amount of time on this open area, but then again, impala do that. They enjoy these open areas close to water. In fact, impala won't be very far from permanent water at all. Winter time, no more than 700 meters or so away, and in summertime, no more than 1.5 kilometers away from water at any given time. So, if you were lost in the bush, hypothetically speaking, and you came upon impala tracks, or you saw impala or heard them, you know that there's water of some quality within a 700 to 1.5 kilometer radius. So, good place there to start looking for water if you were stranded. Water being far more important than food from a survival point of view. As we are treated to such amazing things on these cameras. But let's quickly go over to Cat Eye Pan and go and see what's hanging around there for us. Africam's Cat Eye Pan up in Olifants West Game Reserve, attached to the Kruger Park. About 700 kilometers or so further east of where we were now in Dekwe. And as you can see, we've just had a giraffe come in and what looks to be have a drink. You can see that lip smacking going on. That or she's chewing a cud. It's another female giraffe. We've been so blessed with giraffe over the last couple of days. There's not that many of them around. Yeah, relatively speaking, hundreds of thousands of impala and only a couple of thousand giraffe. See them as often as you think, and then they also come and go. Their populations are not fragmented, or they're fragmented in areas where giraffe and people cohabit. Um, but they tend to move around a lot in these herds, and the males follow the herds. And when the herd isn't in an area you can access, well, then you don't see giraffe. She's chewing something, either cud or a bone. We briefly touched on that a little bit earlier on, saying that giraffe will sometimes bend down and pick up a bone. It's called osteophagy, and they do it to supplement their diet with calcium and potassium. She's coming this way. Is she going to cross in front of us? Walk around us. Let's see. Oh, so expensive. What's she going to do? What a treat. You can see that she's definitely not chewing a bone. She's chewing her cud. And let's see what she does. Yeah, it's busy. See if she comes and has a drink. They're busy scanning around and being quite cautious. Mentioned a couple of times, giraffe are very vulnerable when they go down to drink. And she just wants to make sure that there's nothing that's going to give her a surprise while her head is down. Which when she swallows, in this profile you should be able to see the bolus of food actually go down her neck. And you'll be able to see the cud come back up again. Alright, she's going to drink. Goodness, I've been trying to show you guys that for days and we haven't gotten it right. There she goes, come. She's coming close now. There you go. No, not happy with that spot. There she goes. See how she flicked the water out and deep bend this time. See how long she drinks for compared to the one that drank at Jamana. So blessed to have seen so many giraffe today. Now we're in South Africa at Katapan, at Afrikaans Katapan. We've seen giraffe in Kenya. At Aldonia we've seen giraffe. In Jamala. Now we've got a giraffe standing quite close to the camera here. Let's see if she comes in front of the camera. What I love about these cameras, and that it's like we were there, right there with her, but without the disturbance a human presence would cause. We get to witness some very close and intimate encounters with these animals because of that just superb way of game viewing. There she moves up. Can you believe it? It's almost time to say goodbye again today. These hours fly by. I promise you. Today seems like it's just gone in the blink of an eye, leaving us with really epic blue sky and shiny clouds. Level, you sent in a comment saying that this is one of your favorite shows today. You loved absolutely everything in what you saw. I agree with you, Level, 100%. It is an absolutely fab show today. Went to all number of different cameras all over the place. They all had their mix of animals, their special mix of animals, and we were treated to lots of giraffe drinking, which, you know, as far as it goes, you're not going to see very easily again. Even saw some elephant. But why don't we go over to Okakoya? We'll go and spend the last couple of minutes over there in Namibia. And here we go, Okakoya, Etosha National Park. And you can see that the wind is starting to have an effect. We're getting that grey, whitish color infusing the sky again. And of course the ever-present springbok around this pen, keeping us company for the next 2 minutes or so just before we close the show for today. I'm going to take the opportunity while we're having a look at these springbok cross in front of us just to say thank you to all of you out there for joining me on I was going to say joining me on safari. I suppose it is a type of safari. Well, anyway, joining me today. Thanks for sending all your questions and comments. It's been really special to interact with you. We're going to do more of it in the future. I also want to say thank you to all our partners and all the donors out there that help make this all possible. I want to say thank you to all the staff behind the scenes that work tirelessly to bring you these most amazing moments. So just thank you all around. Much gratitude, the same as yesterday. Wherever you are in the world, hopefully you have a good day and a good weekend. Stay safe. What a great view. What a great ending to the week. So I'm going to say goodbye. This is me signing off, and we'll catch up with you another time. All the best out there, like I said, and last couple of seconds just in silence.